sever any tie in my heart except the tie that binds my heart to yours. And if you have men who will only come if they know there is a good road, I don't want them. I want men who will come if there is no road at all. I will go anywhere provided it is forward. David Livingston.
Thanks, Mary. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Gems of the Wisdom Traditions. My name is Olivia. I'm staff at the Still Moving Center, and we have a really great theme this year. This week, the Ascending Cycle. And we have here Renée Tillotson that is going to be our speaker for Hi, Dustin. Our speaker for this week. I'll give a brief introduction and then I'll hand it off to Renée. But as a lot of you know, Renée is a lifelong mover, NIA practitioner and instructor, legacy director of the Still Moving Center, as well as the Academy of Mindful Movement, which myself, and I think we have some other alum here in the meeting today. Also, she's known for our Life at the Center newsletters, where she writes to our movers and members at Still Moving Center on a monthly basis. And she's here to speak about the ascending cycle. I won't lead any more away from her talk, so I'll hand it over to Renée.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Well, it seems to be an appropriate topic within this year of irreversibility, eyes to the stars. And I'd like to speak from both the astrological and historical perspectives, and both of these in a very light duty way. I almost feel, in terms of the astrological perspective, that I'm kind of in that state of a little knowledge is dangerous. So please don't let me lead you astray in any way. If you have astrological knowledge that you can share with us, that will be very, very appreciated. But I can give you a little bit of an overview in a thus have I heard kind of perspective. And I think that this is an important topic when we hear in the news that there are a lot of people who are very, very nervous about the, hold on. That's Carolyn Dorrance calling because she needs help, I think, getting onto the meeting.
Sure, I'll help her.
Okay, thank you. I think that there is a nervousness looking at what I'm going to call the short-term perspective and what's to come. And I can understand and very much have a certain nervousness. There seems to be a lot of change in the air, and change is certainly always scary. And it could also be exciting, I suppose, if you look at it from a different perspective. And I think what I'd like for us to concentrate on this evening is to just get a longer term view that we can get from history, as the ancients were able to look at the stars and be able to chart out their progress. And then this happened across many different continents and cultures over vast periods of time. And they were able, in their way of predicting when different stars and planetary bodies were going to be in different positions, they came to feel as if they were seeing patterns that they could associate with events here on Earth that would correspond with what was going on in the heavenly realms. And just to look at some of those different cultures and the ways that they were able to predict things. We can go to the Mayan culture, and there was a big hullabaloo around 2012 because some people were saying, oh, it's the end of life on Earth according to the Mayan calendar. The Mayan calendar is coming to an end. And this was, of course, a very much of a misread of Mayan astrology and Mayan philosophy. Mayan philosophy, as almost every ancient culture, viewed the universe cyclically. You viewed the coming and goings of civilizations and different periods on Earth in relationship to all of the changes that they could see cyclically happening with the greater universe. And so the beginning of their most recent creation was back in, this is before the Common Era, 3114 BCE. And then that 5,000 year plus cycle came to an end in 2012. Very interestingly, if you go over to the Hindu calendar, the death of Krishna was just set at 12 years prior to that, at 3102 BCE. And that started this great cycle of 423,000 years, called the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age. And also within that tradition, but many others, there was looking at the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And so that was in 1902 as compared to, 2012 with the Mayans. So within 100 years or 12 years on that beginning end, these very different, very disparate systems were looking at astronomical events in similar ways. If we go to the Hindu system of astrology, they have something called the year of Brahma that is calculated at, this is a fantastic number, I don't even know how to conceptualize, 311,040, so 311,040 40 billion human years. That's a year of Brahma, a year of coming into existence of the universe and then receding from it. We know that the Mayans, when they predicted this closing of a cycle in 2012, did not expect it to be the end of the universe, because they also predicted that in what would correspond to our year of 4772 AD, people would be celebrating the anniversary of the coronation of King Pakach. So, or maybe it's Pakai. Anyway, they were definitely looking into the future. The way of calculating time from a division of 12 that is used in the different zodiacal systems also seems to have very universal bases. Helena Blavatsky, who was quite a student of the many different histories and mythologies and astrologies of the world, said that in all her 2.5 times around the world and visiting all these ancient centers of learning and wisdom, she only saw one accurate zodiac, which she said was from the Sufi tradition. But she, as a student of all the various religions, also looked at the Old Testament and said that the patriarchal lineage that is given in chapter 5 of Genesis, all of those heroes and personages and events, if properly interpreted, would be found to be built upon the 12 zodiacal signs. So very interesting. The zodiacal cycle is echoed in the 12 great Olympians of the Greek and Roman pantheons, as well as the 12 seers of Norwegian prose, the Edda. Also, there are the 12 Adityas of the Hindu pantheon. And even if we look at our clock and its division into the 12 hours of a half-day cycle, that also mirrors these 12 symbols of the zodiac. It was part of popular culture, as you probably know. I think it was maybe in the musical Hair. "'Tis the age of Aquarius, age of Aquarius." This was a really big deal in the popular era, and there seems to be some basis in many, many different cultures for why this age of Aquarius, which has been calculated by some as starting in 1902, very near the time when the Wright brothers took flight, and Aquarius is an air sign and is associated with air travel, whereas the Piscean or Piscean age that preceded it was very much marked by water travel. So the Orville and Wilbur Wright made their flight within a month or two, I think it was, of when the age of Aquarius is said to have started in 1902. And Aquarius is a water bearer, and that spans across different ones of the traditions. He's the Greek Ganymede, who's the water bearer of the gods, from whose jar pours forth the soma of the gods, this kind of divine elixir of wisdom. And in Egyptian astronomy, Aquarius is represented by an androgynous water-bearing god called Hapi, Hapi. And he is associated with both the celestial and the terrestrial Nile River, with the waters of potentiality, compassion, creativity. And these are the nourishing and sustaining waters of life on the earthly plane, and of this more rich ideational plane of the universal mind. This is represented by Hapi being represented by lotuses emerging from her head, and other parts of Hafi's body. I don't quite recall right now. And that would be representing this blossoming of enlightenment that is the lotus symbolizes in many cultures. The double glyph of Aquarius of the two zigzag lines is seen often as the bridge between heaven and earth. So this seems to be part of Aquarius's deep purpose and symbolism, is spanning that which is very spiritual as well as that which is more rational, more intellectual, that which is mystical, and that which is practical. And this capacity to harmonize like, for example, deep flashes of intuition and insight is able to harmonize with commitments to service. For example, service to all sentient beings. And Kirk Gradine, one of our frequent speakers here at Still Moving Center, has said that one of the hallmarks of an Aquarian individual is this effort to be of service, bringing this deep compassion and insight into manifestation for the least and the lowest on earth. And so that could be beautifully exemplified in Mahatma Gandhi as a real model of this Aquarian modality. And all of this idea of this progression through the zodiac, through its different symbols, seems to have to do with both a descending arc and an ascending arc. So the descending arc has to do, evidently, with spirit gradually coming down into matter and informing matter that is not as alive, awake, as conscious. And then, so that's the descending arc of this whole universal cycle that takes place over eons. And then the ascending arc is that of matter rising up in consciousness and becoming much more aware and reaching into a more rarefied state of matter and of consciousness. And there's something about this age of Aquarius that is marking one of the uplifting, ascending arcs in human consciousness and development. Probably, if we look at it from a larger perspectives than I personally am able to be able to convey to you, not having the deep knowledge of astrology that some have, but from what I understand, this Aquarian cycle will at least last a couple thousand years. And it's part of a broader Aquarian cycle than just the 2000 or so year cycles before we move into the next period, which I forgot to look up to tell you about. There's another one right after Aquarius, but the general upsweep, this ascending cycle, could be in some calculations as long as having like a 1,000,000-year arc. And it's also important to remember that there are cycles within cycles, so that even if, for example, we are in this dark age of Kali Yuga, in different parts of the world, depending on what human beings are doing, what they're devoting themselves to, how they're looking at life, and how they're acting and behaving in the world, there can be like minor golden ages happening simultaneously within the larger cycle of this Kali Yuga that is we're now 5,000 years into. And so it seems as if the ancients had this broader perspective of what was going on. That yes, we have cycles. There are going to be cycles of descent, but there will always be cycles of ascent. And the general uplift that is happening is always on the evolutionary arc. So even when we're at the bottom of a cycle, it's still not as low as the bottom of the cycle that preceded it, because we're starting from a higher position each time we make one of these rotations. And this to me seems like a very important perspective to take when we feel nervous about what's right in front of us, for example, in our personal lives or in our more public lives, to just take this longer view. And also the idea that some of these the effects of an ascending cycle will be to break down things from the old cycle that aren't working anymore. And so that is necessary to make way for the new. And so I'm going to leave it there to allow those of you who may have more knowledge on this idea of astrological cycles than I have, or any other questions or comments for the rest of us to consider collectively. Carolyn, I see your hand up. Could you unmute yourself?
I mean, finally, I had to borrow a link from Robert, but it worked. I really don't know anything about the zodiac. It's kind of just seemed to me something out there. But more recently, I found, I thought I was supposed to actually kind of see or directly experience the zodiacs and their changes. But then I doing some reading, and they were presented as a representation of reality, a representation of what's going on in out there. And that was a big source of relief. So, and that's really true of, a lot of books and talks and whatever. We wouldn't feel so uptight if we thought we were studying different ways of representing reality. So I just wanted to toss that in. Maybe I'll observe something else later in the cycle.
That's a wonderful comment. Does anybody want to add on to that? I note your hand there, Olivia, and I think though it went up before Carolyn's comment. So let me throw it out to other people in case they want to comment on Carolyn's. The zodiac, for example, as being representational rather than being like seen as an absolute predictor, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that we have to see the existential reality. No, we're going to work with representative ideas, and then we might be drawn into something that's existential and explains more. But it
Okay.
would just relieve because if you look at ordinary representations of the zodiac in the newspaper or wherever, they're all kind of weird, and they've got all these images that seem kind of chaotic and don't seem very sacred. So that's just somebody else's way to do a representation. So you have to find really the best representations if you're going to be drawn into some inner understanding of
Mm.
the zodiac.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Um, Olivia, I think that's your mom with you, and I understand
Yeah.
she knows a little bit about astrology. Is that true?
Yes, I'd like to introduce my mom, Lynn Trice. She's in town for the holidays. She's never been to a gyms, but I guess she showed up for the right one. Um, she's very well versed in astrology, astrocartography, and when you started singing the Age of Aquarius, she started humming along with you. So I thought I should invite her in, and she could maybe say a little bit about the ascending. Hold on, let me give her the almanac. Talking about cycles. So peace and well-being. I am definitely a woman who moves with the sky, just as my ancestors did way before ancient Kemet, as above, so below. And luckily on today, we have a new moon in Sagittarius. And the great thing about a new moon is when we manifest whatever it is that we need, all right? There's the reason why we use astrology, because there's a time and a place for everything, right? If you want to do things that are equivalent to the daytime, do you do them at night? No. Do you go and plant a field of corn and other things like that during the winter? No, there's certain times that you do things. And so for the new moon is the time that we manifest. And when I say manifest, I'm sure this group of people know exactly what I mean. It's the time that we bring in the things that we need, the things that we want, the people, the archetypes that we want to do, and things like that. And so the great thing about is that this one is a new moon in Sagittarius. And the great thing about Sagittarius is that it's ruled by Jupiter. And when it comes to Sagittarius, Sagittarius is the thinking of I believe. So this is a time of faith. And just like I don't know who it was talking about how we're in the age of Aquarius or going into the age of Aquarius, this is a really, really exciting time. Also in January, in astrology, we have what's called the North Node and the South Node, right? The North Node is the direction that we're going. The South Node is the direction that we've gone before. And so the nodes switch up in January the 11th, and it'll be the North Node in Pisces. And when we come with Pisces out of all the zodiac signs, it's the last zodiac sign, and it is the most spiritual sign. So we are moving in a sign, we're moving in an area of spirituality. The South Node will actually be in Virgo. So Pisces and Virgos are opposite signs. And what that means is we're coming away from being judgmental. We're coming away from wanting to be in control. That's just where we're going. All right. As we all know, we just finished an election. Well, there's an election. We haven't done the electoral process. No one has been sworn in, but there's a shift that has happened, right? There's a shift. We all know it. Right? We're going into a new age, and all the things and the systems that were behind us, they're passing away. And sometimes when it comes to that passing away, the old ways try to hold on.
and what have you. But it's in our best interest to move on and to move forward. Like the person was talking about how Renee, okay, during the age of Aquarius, we are dealing with the sign of Aquarius, which is the water barrier, which is an air sign. So we're in new places, you know, new things. The first will be last and the last will be first. As you can quite well see, this is a process within processes. We've been doing this for a minute, but me personally, I can say if I had to put a date on it, that was 2020, right? When the lockdown happened, right? During that time, people, they went inside. We were locked down. We were still, and it was a beautiful time of rebirth. Nature, the places that have been overtrodden and just downtrodden with people and everything, we saw that the grass became greener, the air became cleaner. We saw different things going on with nature. We as people, we got to be still. We got to go within, right? We found that the way that they used to tell us that would be so difficult to go from brick and mortar to, you know, Zoom meetings and working remotely, that it was going to be so hard. But look what we did. We got with the program and within less than 2 weeks. So moving forward, we're in a new age. Olivia is showing me the ascendant. I can hear change humming in the loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming. And so I sing along.
And she doesn't know it, but we actually know the poet, Amanda Gorman. Remember?
We do know Amanda. Okay.
Remember, I was
Black Girls Rock.
Yes.
She was one of your Black Girls Rock sisters.
Yes.
So the girl that came up with this Amanda, she actually was the poet that did the poet when the inauguration with President Biden. And so this is all in alignment. These are exciting times in terms of new moon is concerned. And today is the new moon, but the energy lasts, it starts 3 days before and then like 3 days after. And then we're going to get that slither on the moon, right? So that means that basically the things that we manifest, we start doing them because we have to have righteous movement and righteous action behind it, along with all the other things that we're using. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be able to share all this stuff and talk to this about, you know, with other people. Olivia's telling me not to scream.
It's great to have you. I'm so glad that we have somebody who's delved into these things.
Absolutely. I'm
Thank you so much.
excited. It's nice to meet you, Renee.
Yes, you
Your
too.
name with the face. My condolences about your father and his transitioning. But
Thank
you know he's still with us, right?
I do.
All right.
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Peace and light to you.
Michael.
Thank you. So I know enough about astrology to know that it's a very deep and complex system. And those who speak off the top of their heads are going to make fools of themselves, which I'm not going to do. It's like learning a language. It's vast. What I would offer is a resource for anyone who's interested in spending a little more time in astrology. That video clip I showed at the start of the planets moving, that was from a very good video series that came out recently called Changing of the Gods. It was produced in the Bay Area by Rick Tarnas, very interesting fellow, and Kenny Ausubel of Pioneers. It's a 10-part series about astrology and events, current and past. Very rich series. If you go to YouTube and look up Changing of the Gods, you will see the series there. It's a 10-part series and you have to rent it. But the first episode is for free. You can watch about half an hour, 40 minutes and see what it's about. And it's a very rich presentation. And also, they did a follow-up. This was made a couple of years ago, and there's another session on there saying, what things have happened since then? And that's like a long hour and a half discussion among some very interesting people. So I would just offer that resource if you want to spend a little more time with astrology.
Has your study of astrology, Michael, given you a sense of a much longer history than you might otherwise have had?
If you watch Changing of the Gods, it's about our connection to the universe. It's about what the universe is all about. You know, is it just dumb matter, or is there a universal intelligence that we're a part of and everything's a part of?
Mhm.
So there's a lot to think about.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you so much. There's a quote in our Still a Moving Center almanac for those of you who may not be acquainted with it. And we have quotes that go along with the themes for each week. And our Still a Moving Center different activities that happen at Still a Moving Center, including these gems from the wisdom traditions talks and conversations go along. And so this week is the ascending cycle. And our quote for Saturday today, which is in the beginning of a Still a Moving Center week, is on a Saturday, is from Hermes: the upward progress of humanity along the evolutionary arc, ascending towards self-conscious realization of spirit, depends decisively upon human initiative. And one of the things I really love about that is acknowledging this grander perspective of our connection, yes, to the whole universe, and also saying that we can't take it for granted, that this is something that this idea of ascent, it's kind of, I feel like it's a little bit like a surfer out there with the waves. Yeah, if you paddle really hard and you got your timing right, you figure out how to stand properly, you can catch a great wave. But that depends on you as the surfer. It depends on us to take advantage of these natural cycles. So wonderful that we're in a cycle of ascent. Great. Now, what are we going to do about it so that we put ourselves en rapport with this natural cycle of the universe, which as human beings, when we are, keeping a clear mind and clear heart, caring heart, and we're speaking and acting in accordance with that, there's every chance that we are going to be riding that wave. We are going to be going up with that ascending cycle that's naturally there. But it does depend on our initiative. And I really like that. Yes, we're connected with the universe, and because we're human beings, we don't just get to kind of go along for the ride like some of the lower creatures, the rocks and the plants and the animals that don't yet have that same power of choice that we as human beings have. And it really is up to us to catch those waves and use some of these cycles that Olivia's mom was referring to, that are naturally occurring every month, every year, every great period of years. These opportunities arise. So yeah, thank you for that comment as well. Yes, Olivia?
Yeah, just to go off of what you said, sometimes like the power of choice and free will can be a little overwhelming. There's so many aspects of our lives that may need attention. What I do really appreciate from astrology and my experiences, like with my mom with talking about the shifts in the north and south node, she always makes me aware of those things, and may not always have a person who make you aware of these things, but there's calendars and apps that can help you calculate where these shifts are happening in your specific chart, because everyone's chart is different. Everyone was born in a different year, different day. And something that really stood out to me this year is when I became aware of how these shifts were going to impact me directly. I believe there was, with the North Node and South Node shifts, it was impacting, with astrology, there's like different house systems. And something just that made me aware is that this is the year with my sixth house where I have to be very aware of how my body is, like the sensations within my body, my health and my well-being. And that really encouraged me, empowered me to try new things like hot yoga and Pilates with reformers. And when I was traveling, I just made it a priority to try these different classes and to get my body moving. It may be different for each and every one of you, but I definitely encourage, if you do have an interest in astrology, of just looking at your chart and seeing how all these shifts in the world are impacting you directly. And I think then it's like which areas can I maybe prioritize in my life right now, or what things that you already are sensing in your body or in your life that maybe don't get as much attention. Yeah, I think it's all really fascinating, and when it comes to like free will, it can be a little overwhelming with all these different choices out there to make. But I think something with astrology, just to wrap it up, is it gives you something to focus on. Specifically, you can just pinpoint one aspect of your life, whether it's friendships or relationships or community or things with your finances or spirituality that just need a little bit more focus.
Thank you. Bob Buss, you've studied a lot of the different religious traditions of the world. I don't know how that's touched on your understanding of this idea of the ascending cycle.
Well, I don't have much understanding of astrology. One thing I've heard that I found kind of interesting is that you can manifest your sign sort of externally or internally. For example, I'm Scorpio pretty strongly, and James Bond would be an example of maybe a Scorpio out there in the world. But internally, it might be much more subtle, like a poet, Walt Whitman, who's very strong, very passionate, but you wouldn't necessarily know it from the outside, but rather from the inside. I find that kind of interesting, and I know the different parts. I'm Scorpio rising, my moon in Aries, my Mercury in Scorpio. So the way I think, I see that all kind of relates to it. But recently, I mean, I'm happy to hear the hopefulness in some people's voices. I haven't really been experiencing hopefulness much lately. And within my tradition, the sort of Taoist Confucian, there is a sense of the transcendental and the immortal, but in the present moment. And so one of the things, I've been reading a book by my teacher, Nelson Foster, called The Storehouse of Treasures. And one of the treasures, he says, is shame. That shame can be a real useful tool. And it almost sounds like the nodes that Olivia was talking about, but the sense that, oh, this is maybe an ideal, and I'm not yet quite practicing it, so there's a sense of shame. Although Leopold on a land ethic said, the fact that we're not growing native plants as much as we could, and the fact that we are inundating the world with exotic plants that are affecting the ecostructures might make us feel ashamed. And I think within this political economic world, there's a way of sort of not focusing on the politically, but to turn yourself about and see where it's coming from deep inside you. And I don't know if that's ascendant or descendant, but it is an ideal. And that's all I got these days. And it's not working all that well, but it is at least a starting point. So I don't know if that's relevant to our discussion, but that's about all I got.
One of the wiser pieces of advice that I've heard recently is that what's happening on the surface isn't what's really happening. That's not where we really should be spending too much of our time and attention. Let's look at the micro level. What are we seeing happening on the micro level that is part of this golden age current that we can tap into? The fact that we hold these gems talks, to me, is a very positive and hopeful thing, that people are in attendance and are contributing some of our own life wisdom. We had a gentleman visit from Germany in the last week or two to Still and Moving Center, and he was at a different one of our conversation circles, our Sunday satsang, and we were taking up a topic of dhyana, or this idea of contemplation. And when I asked him if he'd like to contribute, he kind of stammered and wasn't sure exactly what to say. And he explained to me afterwards, or maybe it was actually at the end of the group session, he explained that he had never been amongst a group of people who were taking up a topic of this depth collectively. And he didn't know how to add to it, but he certainly enjoyed doing it. And I feel that at the micro level, all over the world, these things are happening. Kirk Gradine, who gave a talk called The Aquarian Age, and I drew from the text of that talk rather extensively tonight in my little opening to you. Put it up on YouTube, and it's getting something like 60 hits a day. I mean, there are just so many people that are getting so much from considering some of these ideas from a vaster perspective. And I think that those are the kinds of things that we want to really focus on. Or, the fact that children in school these days are being taught so much about how to take care of our environment. They are thinking of things about, just trash and recycling and what to do with their lunch stuff when they finish with it. And, scolding their parents a little bit about wasting things. And I just think there are a lot of hopeful things that we could be keying in on that are lost in the blare of what we hear on the news. And so there's the micro perspective that I think that can be very helpful. When I travel, I always meet amazing human beings wherever I go. It happens invariably. And so there's this micro level. And then I think the zoom out from the macro level, and all of our ancestors have taken this much broader view. And that too seems very helpful to me. So I'm every once in a while very much attuned to what you're saying about Bob, especially if I watch too much of the news. And then I do my best to zoom in or zoom out.
Well, there's that sense of, shutting off the noise. And not the same as shutting off wisdom. It's sort of, and as I said, it's to turn yourself about, confirm your self-nature that is no nature. I mean, confirm your own self-nature sounds a little bit bit like Olivia was talking about, of, going into the zodiac and really, okay, where's my moon? Where's my Mercury? Where's my Jupiter? Various effects of that, and saying, okay, this is me and such. And you're right. I mean, there is attentiveness by some to environment, but then, politically, you have book bannings, a lack of attention to minority. There was no slavery. There's a lot of energy going there, and that's self-nature, not the political. And it's interesting if you can somehow, and this is what I'm trying to do for myself, is go from the political to somehow the community. The community do relate to. In other words, within the zodiac, there are people you can talk to. You can talk to your mother. I mean, you can talk to people who have some understanding, and you're probably not focusing on distribution of wealth, because that's hopeless. Under this administration, the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer. That's inevitable. Then we have to look at, well, what does that mean? And I heard an interesting story about shame from a poet called Pucci, and he said, imagine 10 huts that people are living in. More than likely, 8 or 9 of them are hovels by poverty people. And no matter how humbly you're living in your hut or house, it's many, many times more, and you're using much more. And again, you can have a bit of shame to say, why do I have so much and someone else have so little? And that's a community thing rather than a political thing, because the political thing, well, it's hopeless. We lost. And I don't know what'll happen in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. And, how much backbone does the political have? But I have no backbone. I have just basically gone over to that other side. And I think there's a lot there. So hopefully it won't be so completely hopeless. There are other aspects, there are spiritual aspects, as you say.
Yeah, and different people are feeling discouraged in different ways and elated in different ways for different reasons, and on a small level, it can look very different to different people. So I don't want to make any political assumptions about anyone actually here. But I do feel as if it is possible for us to look at some of these broader kind of questions, no matter what perspective we're coming from, that the ancients saw things from a very, very long-term view. And whatever seemed to be going up eventually came down, and whatever seemed to be going down eventually did come up anyway. And I think that does give us a certain amount of equanimity, whether we're in the downcast mode or the elated mode in any particular point in time. Mary, any thoughts that you might want to share with us?
Thank you, Renee. Everybody's comments are certainly enlightening. My initial thought is that we are such little cogs in the entire scope of universe and time immortal. And we're all just trying to find our place. Where do we fit in? How can we help one another? Um, we're not going to make big, we're not going to run for political uh, positions. We're going to take care of our families. We're going to take care of those that are closest to us, like Bob says, community as opposed to politics. And that's how I see all of us. I mean, every single person is just trying to find out where they fit. And um, I really enjoyed your quote from Churchill about looking back will help us to see what's coming up in the future. And
Mhm.
how many thousands, millions of generations have gone before us, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. there's always hope. And I love this, what you say about cycle, because things will change, but they will change again and again, and they may be slightly different, but winter follows fall, and spring follows winter, and summer
Comes after that.
it keeps going, and we say hello to new parts of our family, and we say goodbye to friends and family. And I think, um, depending on each individual's belief system, the hope is that we will eventually all be together eventually. But that remains to be seen. So I'll see you guys next week.
It does seem as if no matter what happens, that we'll have a chance to learn from it. And we will have a chance to respond to it. And depending on how we respond as opposed to how we react, we will make the most of it in terms of our learning, and also in terms of how we can be of service to others. And that will make a huge difference, no matter what. I'm going to give David and Dustin a chance to contribute if you'd like to in some way before we wrap up.
I'm good. I appreciate the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you, David.
Thanks for sharing all that wonderful information, Renee. A lot of learning for me, a lot of education. One thing that stood out was you mentioned that there can be these mini sort of ages or cycles within the larger scope. And I kind of see that with the age of Aquarius being this golden age of humanity, of hope and innovation, within this very long cycle of the Kali Yuga, of the age of darkness. So I think that was a really good reminder. I love within the almanac the quote from Sunday, December 1st, which says, "It is not enough to have a vision. In order to have its power, you must enact your vision on earth for all to see. Only then do you have the power." By Black Elk. I'll say that one more time. It's such a good one. It is not enough to have a vision. In order to have its power, you must enact your vision on earth for all to see. Only then do you have the power. And so I remind everyone here that we are all an incredible work of marvel. We are all celestial bodies within this great universe, and we all are a light, and we have the power to shine brightly. So keep on shining.
Thank you so much. It's a great note to close on. Our speaker for next week will be Kirk Gray-Dean, who I mentioned. And as some of you know, he's an architect as well as a student of many cultural and philosophical and religious traditions. And he spoke to us recently, well, previously this year, on the Sphinx. And this next week, he will be speaking to us on the pyramid. The following week, we could use a speaker. I love anyone who would like to volunteer on a firm grasp of our destiny, a firm grasp on our destiny. And there's a quote from Miguel de Unamuno: "We should strive to be the parents of our future rather than the offspring of our past." So very much a forward-leaning one. And then the following week, we'll have the Christmas spirit. And I'm hoping that we can have someone speak to us from the literary tradition with Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. and the different spirits of Christmas who come to visit Scrooge and the outcome as a result of that. Is there anyone right now who feels like they'd like to take on the December 14th topic of a firm grasp of our destiny? Kind of looking at you, Michael. Is that something you'd like to maybe speak on a bit? I was thinking maybe you could even like give us a little report of that from that series that you've been watching. If it gives us some sense of how we could get a grasp on our own destiny.
It's complicated, but I think the bottom line is it's a friendly universe.
Yeah, yeah. I think so too. Well, thank you all again so much. And thank you, Olivia, for not only hosting and introducing me, also bringing your dear mom to share. I'm so glad that this was a topic on which she had a lot of insight to share with us.
Yes, thanks for welcoming her into the circle. She had to step out, but I'll share your words with her.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you all so much. And great Thanksgiving greetings, and I am so appreciative to all of you. Many of you have, well, all of you have been to many of these gems, and I really give you my thanks for that. I think it's a great current for us to kind of keep alive and continue. Aloha.
Aloha. See you in December.